Hi guys, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy VII Remake video. Now, if like me, you played the original Final Fantasy VII back in '97, you know, there's been quite a lot of years that have gone by. A lot of people have talked about, obviously, theories and backstory about what we didn't learn in '97. And, you know, there's a lot of forums, a lot of sub-games from Final Fantasy VII that have kind of filled little holes and little blanks. But one major part of Final Fantasy VII that a lot of, obviously, the community ask questions about regularly is Avalanche. You know, things like when were they formed, how big are they? And we're just going to go over a few things in this video today that we have seen with the remake that potentially could obviously mean, you know, a bigger story going forward. And basically just answer a few questions of what I want to see included in the remake to do with Avalanche, and basically talk about what we know so far, because there's a few things that a lot of the community will not know about Avalanche that is actually out there on the internet. So if you've not ever delved on the internet to look up what Avalanche is and how big they are, etc., a lot of this information, which I'm hoping that they cover in the remake, may be new to you. So yeah, if you do like today's video, hit that like button, let me know, and subscribe if you want more FF7 Remake content. With that being said, let's mosey. So what a lot of the community will know about Avalanche is very minimal, and that is Cloud teams up with Barrett and co, who are Avalanche. You know, they're a small eco-terrorist organisation hell-bent on taking down the Shinra Electric Company. And without going into too much depth and looking it up, that's kind of all you really learn. You know, you hear little snippets along the way, but Avalanche has got a major part in the whole of the Final Fantasy VII timeline. If you didn't know, there is an actual timeline of when the characters were born, when certain wars took place, when the events of Final Fantasy VII took place, and even after that. You know, there's an actual timeline online for stuff like that. And Avalanche is a topic that a lot of people have had questions about, so we're going to go through a few, talk about what we've seen in the remake so far, and hopefully what they're going to implement with this. So now, firstly, would this be in the main story or DLC? Now, I'm hoping it's a bit of both, in the sense of we learn a lot of the backstory of Avalanche, which we've started to see in the remake. You know, when Jesse, Wedge, Biggs, and Cloud, I think it's chapter 4, go topside, and they get rescued from a different faction of Avalanche. So we've seen an indication that this is going to be included in the main story. And going forward, I suppose we could have snippets of Barrett talking about Avalanche, but to get the full aspect of maybe the wars between Avalanche and Shinra, we may need some DLC added to this, because we don't want to deter away too far from the main story. And I think the Avalanche story arc is quite vast, but that's neither here or there. I just hope that they include all this in some capacity. Now, firstly, how are they formed? Now, not a lot of people will actually know how Avalanche was formed, but if you do a little research online, you will find some information on this. And in fact, you'll find a lot of information on this, because for those who don't know, there was a mobile game called Before Crisis, and it chronologically takes place before Crisis Core. The reason a lot of people haven't heard about it is there's no English translation of this game. I'll be very surprised if anybody who watches this video has actually played it, but obviously all the story arc of Avalanche is actually covered in the game. They cover it quite well as well, to be fair. And according to the game, Avalanche was actually formed in Cosmo Canyon by a man who learned of the study of the planet's life and realised that Shinra's Mako reactors would obviously have a damaging and long-term effect on the planet. And without going into detail of all the characters involved, basically that was the start of it. Avalanche then confronted Shinra in various situations across the world. There was a war called the Avalanche Insurgents, and it was also known as the Genova War. And you know, it depicts Avalanche as a bigger organisation, which we've seen in the remake as well. You know, we've seen that they've even got foot soldiers. So they are going to cover Avalanche to a certain extent, but my hopes and aspirations of it is maybe all the information from Before Crisis is depicted in the remake, because obviously there's a lot on Avalanche that a lot of people don't know, and it's such an untapped part of Final Fantasy VII. The potential they could go with this, they could make DLC for it. I know everyone hates DLC, but if you're getting bang for your buck and you're getting chapters like we did in Intermission, I don't think anyone's going to complain. So if they were to bring it out as a DLC of some sort, where we followed Avalanche, maybe seen Barrett's early days, maybe seen one of the wars. I don't think they'll go that far in the sense of content, but I'd love them to do it. So yeah, I just want to see more on Avalanche, how big they are, and basically see how a group, because all we know of Avalanche is Jesse Wedge-Biggs, Barrett, Cloud, and Tifa. So it's like they're taking on Shinra, which is a massive, massive army. So we need to see some presence of Avalanche, their foot soldiers, on their military strength, because we understand that there's a lot of different factions of Avalanche. You know, people have different agendas of why they want to take Shinra down, or basically why they were formed. So it may have all started in Cosmo Canyon, but we know Barrett's reason for joining Avalanche is a bit more personal with what happened to Dine. He's also got a permanent reminder with a gun on his arm of Mako being misused, so he's got his own personal agenda. It'd be interesting to see more cell divisions of Avalanche and take it to the next level on the story arc of obviously Final Fantasy VII. Anyway, that is it for today's video. There's not really else much I can go off without going through the nitty gritty of obviously what before Crisis Officers, but there's no point in doing that. You can look that up yourself, but also I don't want to talk about things that may never even get mentioned in the remake storyline. So yeah, if you have any more information on Avalanche and you want to talk about it, leave it down in the comments down below for everyone to see. And yeah, if you did like today's video, something to keep us going until part 2, hit that like button, subscribe for more Final Fantasy VII Remake content, and until next time, take care.